Mrs. Pence, Charlotte, thank you both for being here. Charlotte, I'd like to begin with you. The story behind The Second Pet starts in Chicago when you were a film student at DePaul University. Tell me about the acquisition of the rabbit known as Marlon.
Yeah, so Marlon, I got him off Craigslist for a student film project. So I was going to school at DePaul, and I wrote a short film, and it needed a bunny. And so I asked the owner how much the bunny cost, and he said to make him an offer. And so it became this Godfather joke with my friends. And so we decided to name Marlon after Marlon Brando, the actor.
And so his name is?
Marlon Bundo.
Of course, naturally.
Yeah, obviously.
And how did the idea for the book come about?
Yeah, it really came about, it started with Marlon, honestly. He had a pretty popular Instagram account, and so we thought, you know, it'd be really fun to do a children's book about him. And we thought, for the first one at least, it should be about the vice presidency, because a lot of people don't know a lot of details and facts about the vice presidency. I know I didn't before my dad was vice president. So it was just a fun way to tell the story through Marlon's eyes.
And Mrs. Pence, you are an award-winning watercolor painter. Tell me about doing the illustrations for this. This was a collaboration that took a few months.
Yes, it probably took about 4 months to get all the watercolors done, but it was a lot of fun. And Marlon is very good at posing, and we put him in a lot of situations, and he'll sit and wait till we get just the right picture. But Charlotte and I did kind of collaborate, so we kind of say, well, for this stanza, what about if we do a picture like this or like that? And like when they go to the Capitol, Marlon is standing up looking out the window of the car at the Capitol. So we talked a lot about what we wanted the pictures to be, but I had the privilege of actually getting to paint them all.
What was that like working together?
So much fun. Honestly, we've had a lot of fun. We kind of started this whole project right before I moved out. So it was fun to kind of be, you know, living long distance and being able to call each other and talk about the project. Or she would tell me, you know, what painting she was working on and send me pictures of Marlon all the time. And so we got to really work on it together the whole time.
And what was that like for you as a mother that is watching your daughter grow up? This is a step out into the real world. Tell me about what that was like for you as a mother to be able to actually have her sort of close as you worked on this project.
And you know, her degree was in filmmaking and writing, and she spent a year at Oxford learning how to write, and she's this amazing writer in the family. I knew that somewhere in Charlotte's future was a book, but you know, to have the privilege of collaborating on her very first published book was really an honor for me. It was a real treat.
Charlotte, let me ask you, what kind of responses have you gotten so far to this book?
Oh, wow, really positive. I mean, it's been really cool. A lot of people, just from Marlon's Instagram, I think, were such big fans of him that, honestly, a lot are not even necessarily fans of our family or really involved in politics. I mean, people will comment and say, you know, I don't agree with your dad's politics, but I love Marlon and I can't wait for the book. So, I mean, it's been really positive and it's been really exciting to see that.
And Marlon has how many followers on Instagram?
He has like over 21,000 now.
And you post on Marlon's behalf, I take it,
yes. You know, he dictates, but then I post for him.
I do have to ask both of you, because, you know, you mentioned that there is obviously this political climate now that is divisive. And as I know you're aware, Charlotte, because you posted on this on social media, there have been some very sharp criticisms. With your book coming out, for instance, the comedian John Oliver came out with a parody book in which the main character of the parody book is a rabbit who is gay. And I wonder, what's your response to that? The criticism there is obviously aimed at your father's opposition to same-sex marriage. First of all, what's your response to that?
Yeah, well, I think that the post we put up really summed it up. I mean, this was, you know, always intended to be a fun book, an educational book. And I mean, it's a book about a bunny, a real bunny. And so I think it's really cool to kind of actually see it be imitated. But also John Oliver's book, I know, is the proceeds are going to charity, as are a portion of our proceeds. And so it's kind of fun. I think we can have fun with it and, just see both of these books gain some popularity and give money to amazing charities. It's a good thing.
And Mrs. Pence, do you have a response?
Well, I like what Marlon said on his Instagram. He said the only thing better than one bunny book for charity is 2 bunny books for charity.
And so that's your official response to that. I think, secondly, by any objective measure, it is a difficult thing to be the family member of someone who holds a high-profile public office, a publicly elected official. And I wonder how each of you navigates that role, Charlotte. What is that like?
Yeah, I think it's, it comes with the territory, certainly. I mean, my dad always talks about how, when we have protesters, there have been protesters outside our house, in the governor's residence and he'll always say, Charlotte, that's what freedom looks like. That's what freedom sounds like. And it's really true. When people feel that they're comfortable speaking up against their elected leaders, that's a good thing, and that's not the case in every country. And so I have to pair that with also being a daughter, and of course you don't like seeing things, especially things that are untrue, being said about somebody that you love, but I also am really grateful that we live in a country where that can happen.
Do you feel like sometimes you wish you could push back more, or push back in a way that's kind of more direct than you might otherwise be able to?
I think maybe against the untrue things that are said, just because I know my dad so well, so I know when things are being said that aren't true. But then at the same time, I think the way that I can show my support, really the best way is just to support him, and just to talk with him about it, and just to just be on his side.
And what about for you, Mrs. Pence? How do you navigate that
Well,
role?
we raised our kids to be free thinkers and to be independent thinkers, and all throughout their growing up years, and still, we'll have, pretty animated discussions about issues at the dinner table. And so I don't think it's something that necessarily scares us. It's not like in our house everybody believes everything that Dad believes, It's not really like that. And, this has been over 20 years that we've been in politics, so we understand it. It comes with the territory. You know that when you run for office that people are going to express their opinions. I'm with Charlotte, though. The only thing that bothers me is when it's something that's not true. But I think when it's something that someone honestly disagrees with someone who's an elected official, they should let their voice be heard.
I'm also thinking of some of the unfair criticism that has been leveled at children oftentimes who are still underage while they're, say, in the White House. During the Clintons' time in office, there was criticism of Chelsea. During President Bush's time in office, there was criticism leveled at the first daughters. And I wonder now, given what we have already seen so far, do either of you have an opinion? Because it was, not that long ago, we also saw some criticisms leveled at Barron himself, and I wonder, as a mother, Mrs. Pence, do you have thoughts about that?
I think probably everybody would say kids should be off limits,
Yeah, I like what Chelsea Clinton says about it. She says that they shouldn't be clickbait. And she, kind of calls on the media to be better than that and to not use kids to be clickbait. So I've always kind of liked the stance she's taken on it.
Let me go back to this idea of becoming more prominent in the public sphere, because as you point out, Mrs. Pence, the life of a public servant, this is not anything necessarily new for you and your family, but of course, moving from Indiana into the Naval Observatory in Washington is a much different thing. What has that transition been like for you?
It's really like the governorship on steroids, really. I think that's a good way to describe it. I think probably the hardest part is that there's so little privacy. We can't drive anywhere anymore. There's always a group of people with us protecting us. So that was a little hard to get used to. But then on the other side, at this level, it's humbling to realize what an impression you make when you go visit a children's hospital or a school or military families. Not so much anything special about Mike and Karen Pence, but that this is the Second Lady of the United States who is coming to see our hospital or our program. to be able to elevate some of those people who need encouragement is a privilege, and it's a humbling thing as well.
What about for you, Charlotte, seeing them sort of make this transition from Indiana to Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, well, I was lucky because I got to go with them for the first year back to DC. So, and I was on the campaign trail, so I really got to see firsthand, the transition literally take place. And so, I feel like we've gotten really close as a family. We've always been close, but we've definitely grown stronger. And it's just been fun to watch. Been fun to watch you guys get into your new roles.
And I know Mrs. Pence, as a lover of art, you're someone who supports the idea of art therapy. Tell me about that.
Well, actually, I'm really glad you asked that, because Charlotte and I both decided to choose a charity separately that a portion of our proceeds would go to. And mine are the two art therapy programs where I'm on the board. One is Tracy's Kids, which is for children with cancer, and the other is Riley Children's Hospital, their art therapy program. And what we're finding out about art therapy is that it can actually help so much with the healing process. We see it a lot with our veterans with PTSD, that when they go through art therapy or music therapy programs, that it actually reprograms the brain. And I've spoken with soldiers who have said, I was suicidal and I don't go to that dark place anymore. I've seen children with cancer who ask their parents, when can I go back to the hospital? And so there's something to this art therapy program. I'm not an art therapist. Art therapy is done by someone who has a master's or doctorate degree in art therapy, and it's amazing to watch them work.
And Charlotte, tell me about the charity that you've chosen.
Yeah, so I chose to partner with A21, which stands for Abolishing Human Slavery in the 21st Century. So they're an amazing organization. They spread awareness about human trafficking. They fight human trafficking, and they help survivors kind of get back on their feet afterwards. So I think they have offices really like 12 or 13 countries all over the world, 2 in the U.S., and I've met a lot of their team. They're great, and they also do a lot of educational work to help people be able to spot human trafficking in their communities, because actually it's a big problem in the United States as well as all over the world. And I think they've really had a lot of success with people reporting human trafficking in their communities since then.
Mrs. Pence, I want to ask you, as a former educator, about just some things that we're seeing in the news today. Obviously, school safety is a huge issue. There are going to be a number of students from Parkland who are heading to Washington on Saturday for a march, and I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Well, honestly, I feel like as second lady that no one elected me or voted for me, and so I hesitate to talk policy, just because I feel like people would think, well, who does she think she is telling us what she thinks policy should be? I mean, we definitely discuss a lot of these issues at home, but we all want our schools to be safe. And so I'm also, along with all the other Americans, looking to our elected officials to say we need to do something to keep our children safe in school. That's the one place they should be safe.
Charlotte, do you have any thoughts on that? These young people coming from Parkland, from other schools as well, that are planning to come and just express their thoughts on this. Do you have any kind of feeling about that, to see young people coming to the nation's capital like that?
Yeah, I think it's just what my mom said, honestly. I think everyone wants to, see this violence stop, and like I said before, that's what freedom looks like, and I think it's great for anybody to voice their opinions and to, take advantage of our rights to gather and to protest and to speak out.
What surprised you about being in Washington so far? Is there anything that you can think of off the top of your head? Was it what you thought it would be? Was it perhaps not all you thought it would be?
I don't know. I think about it, it's kind of funny since we're still in it. I think we'll look back on things and I'll be able to tell you then what surprised me or not. But our family is, again, kind of remained unchanged in a way. We're kind of this unit, and we were before and we will be after, and this is just a role that we have right now. So yeah, I don't know.
And I think, for us, I think one of the advantages is that when Mike was in Congress, the kids went to school in Northern Virginia, and that's where I taught. So we have a lot of friends who have known us for a long time. It's nice to have those friends who knew us before this role came along. The kids all have friends, so when they come back and visit, they're like, I'm going out with my friends tonight, or we're going to have all the friends come over. So we have that advantage of having a community already in Washington, so that was a big benefit for us.
Turning back to the book, tell me a little bit about what people will learn about this role of Vice President from Marlon Bundo.
Yeah, so that was a big part of the book, really, was that it was supposed to be fun, it was nonpartisan, and it's educational. So we wanted to teach kids, adults, and teachers about the role of the vice presidency. I think specifically, we talk about how there are naval enlisted aides that work at the Naval Observatory, which I didn't know, that kind of take care of the house. And then he goes and works at the EEOB, which Marlon talks about, which is where his ceremonial office is.
The Eisenhower Executive Office building.
Exactly.
Yes.
And he is the president of the Senate, so he can cast a vote in the Senate. And he can, what else? He talks to the
fact that we
president.
live at the Naval Observatory, so
That's
it's
a big
actually
one, yeah.
a working observatory.
Yeah.
I know the Vice President had students from Washington, D.C. come and watch the eclipse there. So we've gotten the benefit of being able to go over and look through the telescope at night at the stars. And so there are some interesting things that people might not realize about the role of the Vice President. So Charlotte said, let's tie all these together and have Marlon go to all these things in one day. So that's what the book is.
And has Marlon been to the White House then?
He has been to the EEOB, the Eisenhower Executive Office building. He went and met with the military families there. So he's been there. He goes to the Oval Office in the book, but not in real life. He has not been there.
Not yet. Is he waiting for an invitation?
Yeah, he may get invited, I don't know.
Who knows?
I think he has some connections, would you say? What is it that you think people misunderstand about the role of the vice presidency, or misunderstand about the current vice president?
I think it's such an ambiguous role. So I think since it's defined by the president for every administration, and really probably every term, it changes all the time. So I don't know if people are misunderstanding or if they just don't really know, what the vice president does. Like I didn't. So in the book, it's cool. We kind of talk about my dad specifically as well and what his day actually kind of looks like. So people will learn a little bit about the vice presidency and also about Mike Pence.
And what do you think, Mrs. Pence? Are there things that people misunderstand either about the office of the vice presidency itself, or that they misunderstand about your husband, the vice president?
Well, I think Charlotte's right. I think every vice president has kind of done their own thing. And it really does depend on the president and what he wants that vice president to do. At the Naval Observatory, every vice presidential family has left their mark on the home in a certain way. And one of those we talk about in the facts at the back of the book is what the Bidens did when they left, one thing that they left for the house. So it's kind of this little tradition that just kind of got started, that everybody leaves something at the house. One thing that we've done is we've brought the beehive. So we also now have over 30,000 bees who reside at the vice president's home.
Yeah.
And so they're honey-producing bees? And
Yes,
what happens
they
with
are.
that honey?
Well, we're hoping to get a harvest soon. We haven't gotten a harvest yet, but we've got our little bears ready to go as soon as we're told we can harvest. We don't want to take any out that they need, so it's all the excess honey is what we
And
get.
you're not out there in the beekeeping suit, I take it. That's
No, we
other
have
folks.
someone who does it.
No, yeah.
That seems like a very, very daunting task.
Yeah.
As someone who doesn't like bees, no offense. What else do you think people need to understand? You are actually there and occupying a place that very few people will ever see. And I wonder what it is, not just the physical space itself, but the role itself. You think that will help people understand what it's really like to be the vice president, what it's really like to be the family of the vice president.
Yeah, I think, well, like I was kind of saying before, we won't always be in this role. And so I think that's always an important thing to remember, to kind of take advantage of it at the time, have fun with it, you know, keep communicating with one another and staying close. And yeah, I think that's what I would say.
I mean, I think it's like Charlotte said, we're only there for a short time. And so while we're there, we want to do what we can to help people as much as we can. And I think maybe that's something that maybe we didn't understand coming into it, what it would mean, because you sort of feel like, well, I'm just Karen Pence, what can I do? But knowing that if I get behind an issue, it does elevate it. If I step up and encourage people, it does mean a lot. If we have military families come to the house, swim in the pool, which we've done, it means a lot to them. And so I think trying to take advantage of all of those opportunities is something we really work hard at.
Final question then, given what you just spelled out and this platform that you both have, what's next, Mrs. Pence?
Well, you know what, next for me is I'm going to start focusing a lot more on military spouses. I feel like our military spouses, they serve as well, and it's tough for them. They have a tough road. It's difficult to move every 2 years, get the kids in school, find a new job, and so we're going to do what we can to kind of come alongside them.
And for you, Charlotte?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm always going to be a storyteller, so writing or making films, working in entertainment, is definitely something that I see myself doing.
All right. Karen Pence, Charlotte Pence, thank you both so much.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.